Welcome to Remember Your Future. This is Dave Rose, and today I want to talk about my recent Substack entitled The God-Given Right to Own Property. My point is, the human right to own property is bestowed by the Creator. Armed with handguns and knives, three young men approach a Range Rover parked by a movie theater. The owner gets out of his vehicle with his fiancée when they are surrounded and compelled to give up the keys. Shocked, they comply and surrender their Range Rover to the robbers. The victims are beloved Toronto Maple Leaf star Mitch Marner and his fiancée Stephanie Lachance. Months later, they share the understandable mental and emotional toll inflicted. It definitely does affect you mentally. It definitely does come into your mind for a couple of weeks straight there. Just kind of hits you back and forth driving a car or something like that. So we were lucky enough to have people around that we can talk to and have these stories to tell and get feedback, Mitch Marner said. The human right to own property. We know what happened to Mitch is wrong. We know we have a right to own things. It's essential to being human. My children know it, Mitch Marner knows it, I know it. When we are robbed, it affects our souls. Though the insurance company may replace the physical loss, theft leaves a mark on us. The right to own property has deep roots. Nations enshrine this right into foundational law. The U.S. Constitution, for example, protects residents from unreasonable searches and seizures of either self or property. That's in the Fourth Amendment. And prohibits even the government from taking private property for public use without just compensation in the Fifth Amendment. By the way, if you're finding this video helpful, please hit that subscribe and like button. Feel free to subscribe to my Substack, link in the description. The United Nations has affirmed the human right to own property since 1948 through the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Everyone has the right to own property alone, as well as in association with others. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property. When the rescued Israelites are newly redeemed from slavery in Egypt, slavery being the unlawful and immoral ownership of a human being, God gives his people the familiar 10 Commandments. It is in these 10 Commandments we observe the 8th commandment, you shall not steal, and the 10th commandment, you shall not covet anything that is your neighbor's. In other words, God himself demands I must honor, respect, and enforce the right my neighbor has to their property. I must not unlawfully take it. I cannot take it by force or for an unfair price. My neighbor must consent to give it to me. I must not even covet what belongs to my neighbor. The right to own property, something we naturally know and feel, flows from the divine lawgiver. God establishes the right to own property and forbids immorally acquiring property through theft. So what about sharing and generosity? Even in sharing, we are teaching that property rights are fundamental. You have the right to share or not the things that are yours. When we teach our children to share, we ask them to share their toys. The toys belong to them. Sharing does not diminish property rights, it enforces them. I cannot share my neighbor's car for them. It is not mine to share. I can only share what I own. I must have property rights if I can share. While governments affirm to various degrees the human right to own property, this right is not created by consensus, nor does it stem from a benevolent government. The Creator bestows the human right to own property, and violating this law is immoral. Trust and property rights. Depending on the property, enforcing the right to ownership varies. Money in the bank is insured to a point against theft or insolvency. The car in the driveway is insured to a point and protected by law enforcement. The deed to the home is protected through a comprehensive legal process that protects owners and sellers with lawyers, agents, and banks, all playing a role in enforcing property rights. Notice that a third party is trusted to defend the right to own property in all these cases. If the insurance company disagrees, the loss will not be restored. If the lawyers collude, an injustice will occur. We trust our banks, lawyers, and law enforcement to act justly and fairly regarding our property rights. And so long as the institutions around us are trustworthy, this is a beautiful system. Unfortunately, we know of instances of injustice, corruption, and unjust seizure. If only there was an asset that did not require trust to possess, where you could shelter some value free from the risk of corruption and unjust seizure. Well, Bitcoin is trustless. Critics of Bitcoin will decry its volatility. How can something that loses 70% of its value after skyrocketing 1,000% be an alternative to the stability of the bank? Consider the trustless perspective. If your property is at risk of theft or seizure, you stand to lose 100%. $10,000 in the bank is trusted with the bank. If the bank fails to enforce your property rights, you will lose $10,000. Stored in Bitcoin, you risk $10,000 becoming $3,000 or $100,000 due to price volatility. But when holding your Bitcoin keys, you do not risk losing your Bitcoin. This trustless nature is enforced by the Bitcoin network, a decentralized network of Bitcoiners running nodes. To participate in the network, each node must agree to the Bitcoin protocol, the rules. You are free to disagree with the rules, but you cannot partake in the network if you do. To change the rules, you must persuade most of the network to agree to your modifications. Because node runners are invested in the network, they are incentivized to protect the network, and therefore only changes that benefit the network are approved. And even then, these changes take years to finalize, following much scrutiny. Bitcoin is the breakthrough innovation that makes it possible to own a scarce asset, hold that asset personally without a custodian, and do so with bank-grade security. Good governments agree with and defend the human right to own property. Bitcoin weaves this fundamental right into its core. It empowers the owner to take and enforce possession, making theft or loss increasingly tricky. In a world of custodians, where trust in authorities is needed to enforce property rights, where abuse or incompetence can lead to theft and loss, Bitcoin is an asset class that self-defends against unlawful or immoral seizure and loss. If you feel I've earned it, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you are notified when I publish my next video, and let me know your questions and thoughts in the comments. And feel free to follow me at Substack with the link in the description. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.